Well, I woke up this morning, planned to finish packing for the Vegas Regionals, and I saw that we had some card reveals overnight of Mega Frostlass and some other trainers Pokemon and some other things like that. So we've got some pretty big reveals here. I'm very excited for, I guess, the re-release, the addition of more trainers Pokemon. I think it's going to make things very interesting for some of the existing decks. We already see that with the Ends deck here. But let's go ahead and talk about some of these cards here and what I kind of think they do for the meta. Overall, we got probably, I don't know, like 10 cards revealed, something like that maybe. And some of these are pretty decent, so I think it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, the big one here, right off the bat that we have is Mega Frostlass EX. We, of course, have the Snorunt here as well. I don't know why it says Vanillite, because this is a Snorunt, but it is just another 70 HP Snorunt. Nothing crazy there. I know we are losing one to rotation, but there is still the one from Twilight Masquerade that's still relevant, so... yeah, this one has 70 HP. I can't remember off the top of my head if those have 70 or 60, but overall, nothing crazy there. I think they do have 60 actually, so this might actually make it just better for things like Dragapult. So, yeah, that might just be the optimal way to go when it comes to Snorunt. But more importantly, we got the Mega Frostlass EX reveal here. I think it's very cool to see how the Megas work because a lot of them are very different. Some of them are just terrible. This one here, I think, is going to be very solid for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is a stage 1, unlike a lot of the recent megas we've seen, which are stage 2s. This one evolves directly from Snorunt. Snorunt is a card that already evolves into Frostlass, which is already a really good card. So this might be one of those cards that you can kind of just squeeze into certain decks. You know, right off the bat, one deck that I think of is like Frostlass Monkey Dory, which we have here. So maybe instead of running like the Blood Moon Ursaluna, or maybe you still run the Blood Moon Ursaluna, but maybe you just fit in the one copy of Mega Frostlass here just to have a big attacker. Basically what this card does is its kind of main attack here, it costs 1 water energy. You do 50 damage times the number of cards in your opponent's hand. That's pretty insane because unless your opponent has like a 2-card hand, you're doing a lot of damage. Like, let's say you Iono or something at the start of the game, and they now have 6 cards in their hand, you're doing 300 damage for 1 energy, with no other drawbacks, which is kind of insane, I feel like. And you've got 310 HP, which is pretty solid. I mean, it's the same as Gardevoir EX. Obviously, you're worth 3 prize cards instead of 2, but, you know, you got to trade off somewhere, right? And your other attack here is Absolute Snow, which is 150 damage, but it does make your opponent's active Pokemon asleep, which is always a pretty solid status condition as well. So you do have that option, but with this card, you're mostly probably going to be going for that first attack because it costs 1 energy. And really, I feel like this is a card that kind of any point in the game could be good, because you're always going to find your opponent having cards for the most part. There's really no counterplay to this in that sense because you're not going to like make sure you have no cards in hand. That way you don't get hit by this, you know what I mean? You have to have cards in hand to play the game. So it's an attack where you're pretty much always going to be able to use it, I feel like. And in a deck like this, for example, you don't play any water energy, but you do already play luminous energy. So, yeah, it kind of just works, I feel like. You know, you just throw in a copy of that, and now you have a big attacker in this deck. I do think that it... Okay, yeah, I saw it right there. The Snorunt right now has 60 HP, so that actually is a pretty big buff. So we have 70 HP now. But in general, I think Mega Frostlass has some potential here. It's always nice to get these like megas and stuff like that where they kind of evolve from something that's already relevant. So again, in this case, you know, a lot of decks that are playing Frostlass, maybe you consider throwing this in there too. If you already play Luminous Energy, it kind of just makes sense. So I do think that this is going to be a very solid card, and I'm kind of excited to see where we see it put into decks. So very excited for that mega overall. And again, the Snorunt is a big buff here with the 70 HP. Going down a little bit further here, we do have the reveal of some more Ends Pokemon. We got the Vanillite line, the Vanillish, a Pokemon that I actually like a lot. This one here is very interesting because I don't really know if you would find yourself playing this in the Ends deck. We'll kind of talk about a supporter later on where this is relevant. But it does have it has Call for Family, which, you know, everyone kind of knows what that does. You can just search for 2 basic Pokemon, put them on your bench, shuffle your deck. After that, we had the Vanillish. It's got Flop for 20 damage. It's got Sheer Cold for 60. Makes it to where your defending Pokemon cannot attack. And then after that, we do have the Vanillux. This one here, it's got some solid attacks overall. But again, it's one of those situations where, like, do you really want to be setting up a stage 2 in this deck? Probably not. So if you theoretically could set it up, it would be good. But I just don't really see you wanting to add that in and kind of fit in that deck space for Zoroark. I feel like Zoroark is good where it's at. It's going to be good with the other Ends Pokemon that got revealed. So I don't really see us squeezing this in here, but it still has some really cool attacks here. You've got the Layered Snow. You get to basically double the damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon. So let's say they have 100 damage on them. You know, now you get to double that to 200. So it could be very solid for a deck like Zoroark where you're not really hitting for knockout numbers all the time. And now you're able to basically just knock them out. At the same time, though, I don't see why you would go for that, because if you're hitting for 170 with Reshiram's attack, you could just hit for 170 again and knock it out anyways. So I don't really see you using that. You've also got Blizzard for 120 damage, and it does 10 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Pretty good spread attack here, but is a 10 damage really that relevant? Maybe, because you play Monkey Dory, but again, is it worth setting up a stage 2? Probably not. We've also got the Frostmoth line here. Nothing crazy there. It's got an ability where each player can draw a card. Nothing really crazy there. You've also got Cold Cyclone, where you get to move a water energy from this Pokemon to one of your benched. Does 90 damage. Doesn't really seem worth it, to be honest. Nothing really too crazy there, I feel like. But the big crazy card here for Ends deck is going to be the End Zekrom, which we've seen a lot of speculation on this past week as to what these attacks actually do. We saw the image of it. It was very blurry, very hard to see. But a lot of people kind of speculated that this would be the case. And it actually is, that we have a 70 damage shred attack. So this is very good for getting through stuff that blocks like EX attacks. Now you can kind of get through that with Zoroark. You also have the Rampage Thunder here, which is 250 damage. And during your next turn, this Pokemon cannot attack, which for Zoroark isn't really a problem because you play things like Petrarunt, you play things like Air Balloon. So you have ways to kind of switch between your Zoroarks, and it's really not a problem at all. So it's going to be a really nice card for the deck, because you can now hit for higher numbers. The big problem with Zoroark is a lot of times you're not really hitting for those knockout numbers. And now I feel like you can, because yeah, you're doing 250 and there are things with more HP, but you got to keep in mind, you know, a lot of builds of Zoroark are playing like Petrarunt. You got Binding Mochi where you can do 40 more damage, so now you're hitting for 290. You've also got things like Monkey Dory where you can kind of move damage around, and you're kind of setting yourself up to where even if you don't take the knockout, you can knock out next turn with Monkey Dory. So you pretty much have an option now to kind of one-shot most things in the format. And I think that's what Zoroark was really missing in the past. And I do think that this card will help buff the deck a lot. It just really seems like what we kind of needed in Zoroark. It's kind of like that one missing card. So I'm very excited to see how it gets added to the deck and how it makes it better. The last card we have here is going to be a new supporter card. This one's kind of crazy. So you can only play this card if you have Ends Darmanitan, Ends Zoroark EX, Ends Reshiram, Ends Zekrom, Ends Klinklang, and Ends Vanillux in play. And if you have all those things and you manage to knock out your opponent's active Pokemon by damage from one of your attacks, you can take 3 extra prize cards. So theoretically, if you're up against a Mega Pokemon, you could take 6 prize cards in one turn if you meet all of these conditions. Now in theory, this seems like a very good card, but again, do you really want to set your board up like this? Probably not. Like, I don't see people adding Klinklang to the bench here with Magnetic Blast for 50 damage or Triple Smash. I just don't see it happening, so I don't think that this card will have any relevance if I'm being honest, but still kind of cool, kind of a fun meme card. I feel like I just don't see it being good. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see decks being built off of like this win condition. It just doesn't seem worth it. Like, by the time you get all these things set up, you could have already taken 3 extra prize cards, you know what I mean? So like, it just doesn't seem worth it in this case, unfortunately. Still a really cool idea, but I just don't think it's going to be any good. So that's all we have so far from today. Got some pretty good stuff here. I always like to look at the comments and kind of see what people are thinking about here, but I always am excited to see megas, man. I feel like you can do a lot of cool things with them, and this is a really cool idea, being able to do more damage based on the number of cards in your opponent's hands. So I do think Froslass EX is going to be very good. We will have to see where it kind of fits into decks, and I'm also excited for the Snow Run buff as well. I don't know why I thought the other ones had 70 HP, but that is a pretty big buff. It's always nice to basically have that extra 10 HP for things like Dragapults. Yeah, I mean, Hawlucha still exists, but Hawlucha will be rotating pretty soon, so it can be kind of annoying for Dragapult to deal with. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know if you're excited for Zoroark to get these buffs. I think it's going to be a very good deck moving forward. It already is, but it's going to get even better. So I do think it will have a lot more meta relevance. And it's a deck that I kind of want to pick up. After Vegas, I think I'm gonna kind of put a pause on Dragapult for a little bit because that's all I've been playing, and I do want to pick up a deck like Zoroark and just kind of learn it a little bit better. So it might be a deck for me. We'll have to see. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good one. I'll let you guys know how I do in Vegas, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.